Hey there! Tonight, we're diving into something that'll make you seriously thankful for that warm shower you took today. We're stepping back in time to explore Victorian hygiene, and trust me, this one's going to be wild. Picture the elegant gowns, polished shoes, and tall top hats. Sounds classy, right? Well, let's just say things weren't quite as charming beneath all that fancy fabric. Oh, and before we get started, if you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to hit like or subscribe. I'd also love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment with your location and the time there. It always amazes me that people are listening to these stories from all around the world, sometimes even drifting off to sleep while doing it. So, get comfy. Find your favorite cozy spot. Take a deep, slow breath and let yourself sink into whatever you're lying on, because we're traveling back to the 1850s, straight into the heart of Victorian London. And believe me, by the end of this, you'll be very grateful for that soft mattress under you right now. Congratulations, you've officially woken up in Victorian London. The first thing you notice isn't what you see, it's what you smell. The air is thick, heavy, almost chewy, like it clings to the back of your throat. Imagine taking every bad smell you've ever tried to escape and mixing them together in one big, steaming pot. Think human waste, rotting food, piles of garbage, smoke from endless coal fires, and something else, something sweet and foul that you can't quite identify. You shift in your bed, or whatever passes for a bed, and immediately feel how strange everything is. The sheets, if you have any, are coarse and scratchy against your skin. Forget soft cotton, these feel more like sandpaper. And the smell, let's just say, the concept of fabric softener won't exist for at least another 100 years. Good news, you're alive. Bad news, pretty much everything else. Let's start with where you're staying. If you're poor, which most people are, you're probably crammed into a tiny room with 6, maybe 8 other people. Could be your family, could be complete strangers. Doesn't matter much, because privacy is a luxury only the rich can afford. The room itself might be 10 feet by 12. That's it. Everyone's sharing the same air, the same space, and honestly, the same germs. The walls are always damp, slick to the touch. In the corners, there's this greenish, moldy stuff creeping up. Nobody mentions it, but everyone knows it's there. You breathe in, slow and careful, taking in this strange, suffocating new world. Now, if you happen to be middle class, lucky you, things are a bit better, but just barely. You might have your own bedroom, maybe even your own bed. Still, there's no running water, no electricity, and that bathroom you're picturing, yeah, that's not really a thing yet. Here's the fascinating part. People back then thought they were clean, like truly believed they were keeping up good hygiene. Their idea of clean, though, was, well, a little different. Take bathing, for example. That long, hot shower you enjoy every day. Shampooing, scrubbing, rinsing, the whole thing. Yeah, forget about it. Back then, taking a full bath daily would make people look at you like you'd lost your mind. You can almost feel yourself sighing in relief, realizing just how lucky you are, because the Victorians honestly believed frequent bathing was dangerous. They thought too much water could weaken your body, make you ill, maybe even kill you. So, most people back then would only take a full bath, maybe once a week, if they were fancy, and if you were poor, you might manage one a month. Maybe. But here's the thing. They weren't walking around completely filthy. They actually had a system for staying sort of clean. It was called a sponge bath. Basically, you'd wash only the important areas: your face, your hands, your armpits, and, well, the private zones. That was it. Everything else could wait until proper bath day. Picture this. You're standing in your tiny bedroom because that's where most people washed. Beside you is a little wooden stand with a bowl and a pitcher of cold water. Cold because hot water on demand. Yeah, that's pure fantasy at this point. You pour a little water into the bowl, grab a sponge or a rough cloth, and just spot clean. Like you're detailing a car, except the car is your body, and the detailing effort is minimal at best. You can almost feel your shoulders drop, your breath slowing, as you imagine how different their mornings must have been. Now, the wealthy had it a little better. Some of them even had elegant copper tubs, the kind that servants would fill with buckets of hot water hauled up from the kitchen. But even those people weren't bathing every day, maybe twice a week if they were serious about cleanliness. And get this, the same bathwater was shared. Yep, Dad went first, then Mom, then the kids, one after another by age. And by the time little Billy got his turn, that water was less like bathwater and more like a questionable soup. There were even books written to teach people how to take a bath. No joke. Bathing for beginners, basically. And these guides came with strict rules, because apparently doing it wrong could kill you. For example, never wash your face while traveling unless you can purify the water with alcohol or ammonia first. Or try a Russian bath. Wash your face with very hot water, then very cold water to prevent wrinkles. As you settle a bit deeper into your bed, you can't help but feel exhausted just thinking about it. Their version of self-care sounds like a full-time job. Now, let's talk about teeth. Oh boy, teeth. Toothbrushes did exist, but they were pricey and, honestly, not great. Most had wooden handles with bristles made from stiff animal hair. Imagine scrubbing your teeth with a mini cleaning brush, one that cost about as much as a week's worth of groceries. So what did poor folks do? They improvised. Some chewed on celery to clean their teeth. Yes, just raw celery. Others made homemade toothpaste from chalk, soot, or even powdered cuttlefish bone. Yeah, you heard that right. Cuttlefish bone. In your mouth. On purpose. And if you got a toothache, well, brace yourself. Because dentists weren't common yet. You'd probably visit your local barber, or even the blacksmith. The same guy who trims hair and shoes horses would now be poking around in your mouth with whatever tools he had lying around. No anesthesia, no training, just pain and prayers. You can almost feel a yawn escape as you realize how lucky we are to have modern dentistry. And then there was hair care, a whole adventure of its own. Shampoo didn't exist, so people had to get creative. One of the most popular hair treatments was eggs. Yep. Women would literally crack eggs over their heads and rub the yolks through their hair like they were cooking breakfast right on their scalp. Then they'd rinse it out with pitchers of water. The smell, probably unforgettable. Other shampoos included vinegar mixed with water, black tea, rum, or even rosemary. Basically, if it was something liquid you could find in a kitchen, chances are someone tried washing their hair with it. The wealthy had access to slightly fancier mixtures, but honestly, even their luxury shampoos were just homemade blends of whatever ingredients were lying around. And here's the real kicker. They only washed their hair maybe once a month. Maybe. You see, women back then thought of their hair as their crowning glory. They'd style it into these massive, intricate updos and leave it that way for weeks on end. To keep it shiny and manageable, they'd rub in oils and pomades, which, over time, would go rancid. So that beautiful, elegant hair, yeah, it usually smelled like spoiled fat. Lovely, right? You shift a little, trying to get comfortable, as you picture what their daily routines must have been like. Now, laundry, that was a whole different nightmare. No washing machines, obviously. Every single item had to be washed by hand, and soap was pricey, so people had to get creative. Oil stains were treated with chalk. Blood or grass stains, they'd scrub them with kerosene. Bad smells were handled with milk, and for bleaching, brace yourself, they soaked their clothes in human urine. Yep, urine. Because it contains ammonia, which actually is a decent cleaning agent, but still, it's urine. The entire process took forever. You'd haul buckets of water, heat it up, scrub each piece by hand, rinse it, then hang it out to dry. A single wash day could literally take all day. So, most people only did laundry once a week if they were lucky, and some went even longer. That means people often wore the same clothes for days, sometimes weeks. So that beautiful Victorian outfit you're picturing, the elegant dress, the crisp suit, chances are it hadn't been washed in a long time. You take a slow, steady breath, thinking about how much effort it took just to stay barely clean. Now, let's talk about underwear, or more accurately, the lack of it. Most poor folks didn't wear any at all. None. The wealthier might own linen undergarments, but even those didn't get changed very often. And women's clothing? Oh boy. Layer upon layer of thick fabric, corsets that hadn't been washed for months, petticoats that, well, let's just not even go there. All that clothing absorbed everything. Sweat, body odor, cooking smells, smoke from fires, food stains, and it just stayed there, trapped in the fabric until the next wash day, which, again, might not come for weeks. Now imagine walking through a London street in the middle of summer, hundreds of people around you, all wearing heavy, unwashed clothes, each carrying a mix of their own natural scent, plus whatever they ate for breakfast, plus smoke from coal fires, plus horse manure from the streets. Yeah, you get the picture. The smell wasn't just strong, it was everywhere. It clung to you. It filled your nose, your mouth, like something you could almost taste. In the air, your breathing slows as you sink deeper into this strange, grimy world where clean was a constant battle, one nobody ever really won. And that's just personal hygiene. We haven't even touched on the streets yet. Oh, the streets. London in the 1850s was home to nearly 2 million people. And that's a lot of people making a lot of mess. There was no garbage collection, no sanitation crews, no one cleaning things up. People just tossed their trash straight out the window into the street, where it would rot in piles and attract rats the size of cats. And human waste? That's a whole other story. Most homes didn't have toilets. Instead, people used chamber pots, basically bowls or buckets you'd keep under your bed. You'd do your business in it, and then someone had to empty it. Sometimes into a shared outdoor privy, sometimes straight into the street. And if someone was feeling particularly lazy, well, they'd just dump it right out the window. There were actually people back then called night soil men, and their job was exactly what it sounds like. They'd come around after dark to empty out cesspools and privies, hauling away the city's human waste. They only worked at night because, honestly, the job was considered way too disgusting for daylight hours. And where did all that waste go? Mostly straight into the River Thames, London's main river, the same river that people drank from. Yeah, let that sink in for a second. You settle a little deeper into your bed, muscles relaxing, as you imagine living in a world where the river that gives you water is also the city's sewer. And then there were the horses, thousands of them. London, quite literally, ran on horsepower. Carriages, wagons, omnibuses. Every bit of transportation depended on them. But horses, well, they poop a lot. It was estimated that one horse produced about 35 pounds of manure a day. Multiply that by thousands, and you've got mountains of waste piling up across the streets. When it rained, all that filth turned into rivers of sludge, washing through the gutters and alleys. When the sun came out, it baked everything dry, turning the streets into dust. Dust made of things you definitely didn't want to be breathing in. And yet, people did breathe it every single day. They walked through it. They lived in it. It became their normal, because when everyone smells bad, when everything around you stinks, gross, just becomes part of everyday life. You sink further into your mattress. You're breathing steady, feeling grateful, really grateful, for soap, plumbing, and garbage trucks. The thing is, Victorians weren't stupid. They knew things were unpleasant. They just didn't understand why people kept getting sick. At the time, they believed in something called the miasma theory. The idea was that diseases were caused by bad air, or more specifically, bad smells. They thought if you could smell something foul, that meant it was dangerous. And honestly, they weren't completely wrong. Bad smells usually meant filth and poor sanitation, and that did lead to illness. But they got the cause backward. They blamed the smell itself instead of the conditions that created it. So, their solution: perfume. Lots and lots of perfume. Instead of fixing the sanitation problem, they just tried to cover it up. The rich drenched themselves in expensive fragrances, layering on scent after scent to mask the world around them. Poorer folks used whatever they could: cheap cologne, dried flowers, herbs, anything to fight the stench. But here's the thing about trying to mask the smell of sweat, rot, and sewage with perfume. It doesn't really work. It just creates this nauseating blend that's somehow worse than the original smell. Imagine vanilla air freshener mixed with, well, a porta potty. That's pretty much what the wealthiest Victorians smelled like. A quiet sigh escapes you as you think about how lucky we are to understand hygiene and disease the way we do now. Women, though, they had it especially rough. Their clothing was even more complicated than men's. Layers upon layers of thick fabric, corsets so tight it was hard to breathe. Heavy skirts that dragged along the ground, collecting dirt and, let's be honest, whatever else was down there. And through all that, they were still expected to look flawless. Makeup existed, but it came with a deadly twist. Face powders were often made with lead. Rouge, that rosy blush for the cheeks, contained mercury. No one knew how dangerous these ingredients were, so countless women literally poisoned themselves in the name of beauty. And if that wasn't enough, hair dye was even worse. There was a popular product back then called Hall's Hair Renewer. It promised to restore color and hide gray hairs. The secret ingredient? Lead. People were literally rubbing lead straight into their scalps and then wondering why they felt sick all the time. Your shoulders drop, tension melting away as you think about how far we've come, how much we've learned about chemistry, safety, and basic self-care. And then there were the beauty routines. Without modern skincare or dermatology, Victorians had to get creative, sometimes a little too creative. Lemon juice to fade freckles, butter for dry skin, and the strangest of all, raw meat face masks. Yes, really. They'd sleep with slices of raw beef on their faces, believing it would keep them looking young and fresh. Just imagine the smell of a wealthy Victorian bedroom, the air thick with a mix of raw meat, lead-based powder, unwashed hair coated in rancid oils, and a cloud of heavy perfume trying its best to hide it all. It must have been complicated. But you know what? They made do. They adapted. They found ways to feel beautiful and clean within the limits of their world. And honestly, that's kind of impressive when you think about it. They were using what they had, doing their best with what they knew. You get cozier, the blankets pulling a little closer as that thought settles in. There's something almost admirable about their determination, their resourcefulness, even when their methods make us cringe today. The wealthy, of course, had help. Servants to do the worst of the work, maids to empty chamber pots, laundresses to scrub filthy clothes, bath attendants to haul and heat water. But those servants, they often lived in even harsher conditions. They were so busy keeping others clean that they barely had the time or means to care for themselves. The poor just did what they could. They shared what little they had, helped one another, and accepted that being clean was a luxury few could afford. Survival came first, finding enough food to eat, enough work to pay the rent, enough coal to keep from freezing. Hygiene. Hygiene was something you worried about only after everything else. And in 1850-something London, most people didn't have everything else figured out. Your breathing slows, steady, calm, as you picture life in that world. A place where every simple act was harder, where taking a bath was an event, something that required planning, where brushing your teeth was a small victory, where staying clean was a daily battle against a dirty, crowded, smelly world. And the funny thing is, Victorians would probably think we're the strange ones. Daily showers, fresh clothes every morning, washing our hands several times a day. They'd likely worry we were scrubbing away our body's natural defenses, making ourselves weak. Different times, different knowledge, different priorities. But beneath all the grime, the smells, and the questionable hygiene habits, they were still people, real people, families doing their best to survive, to stay hopeful. They fell in love. They laughed at jokes. They worried about money. They celebrated birthdays. They dreamed about better futures. They were just a little smellier while doing it. You sink deeper into that comfortable stillness, a warm heaviness spreading through your body as the strange, messy world of Victorian London starts to feel both distant and strangely human. Imperfect, yes, but familiar in all the ways that matter. And just when you think you've heard it all, there's one more thing that'll really make you appreciate the world we live in today. Victorian toilets, or more accurately, the lack of them. That bathroom down the hall, the one with running water, soft toilet paper, and a seat that doesn't make you shudder. Yeah, forget about it. Most Victorians had never seen anything like your bathroom. Your muscles relax a little as you think about how simple it is. Just walk down the hall, flip a light, flush, done. If you were poor back then, and most people were, it wasn't nearly so easy. You shared an outhouse with maybe 100 other families. Picture this: one small wooden shack built over a deep pit, tucked into a shared courtyard behind a row of houses. No privacy, no toilet paper, no way to wash your hands afterwards. Just a hole in the ground with a rough wooden seat on top. And the smell. Oh, the smell. Especially in summer. It was like walking into a physical wall. A hot, sour wave that hit you the moment you stepped close. And the flies, clouds of them, buzzing around the opening. You just had to deal with it. A yawn escapes as you find yourself feeling unexpectedly grateful for modern plumbing. The wealthy had it better, at least on paper. They had water closets, early indoor toilets built right into their homes. It sounds fancy, right? But here's the catch. There was no modern plumbing to carry anything away. So where did all that waste go? Straight down into a cesspool in the basement. Yes, a big open pit of human waste directly under the house, sitting there, fermenting. The idea was that someone would eventually come and empty it. But eventually didn't always happen soon enough. When the cesspool filled up, the smell would start creeping up through the floorboards. People would wake up dizzy and nauseous from the fumes that had been building overnight. And that's when they'd call the night soil men. These were the ones who emptied cesspools and privies. They only worked at night because the job was considered too disgusting to be seen in daylight. In fact, it was literally illegal to do during the day. Can you imagine? The work was so revolting that it had to be hidden under darkness. Your breathing slows again, deeper now, as you try to imagine living above a basement full of sewage. The night soil men would arrive with shovels and buckets, descend into that foul space, and start digging. Bucket by bucket, they'd haul it up and dump it onto carts waiting in the street. The smell during this process was beyond description. Heavy, sour, choking. Neighbors would shut their windows, stuff rags under their doors, and still, it seeped in. And where did all that waste go? That's where it gets strange, because human waste was valuable. Farmers outside the city needed fertilizer, and, well, human waste makes excellent fertilizer, so the night soil men would sell it. They'd cart it out of London, dump it on the fields, and spread it over the soil, which means the vegetables people ate for dinner were literally grown in human waste, the same waste carrying cholera, typhoid, and who knows what else. The cycle was, well, horrifying when you think about it. You sink a little deeper into your pillow, feeling oddly thankful for modern agriculture and plumbing. But even that grim system couldn't last. By the 1850s, London was simply too big, too many people, too much waste. The night soil men couldn't keep up. Cesspools overflowed, streets flooded with sewage every time it rained, and diseases spread like wildfire through the city. People were getting desperate. Some had simply given up on the cesspool system altogether. Instead of waiting for someone to come empty it, they'd just toss the contents of their chamber pots straight into the street, out the window, or into the nearest river or stream. And of course, all those rivers and streams eventually led to the Thames, London's main source of drinking water. So yes, people were literally drinking water contaminated with their own sewage, and then wondering why everyone kept getting sick. Your shoulders drop slightly, a small sigh escaping as you think about how obvious the connection seems now. The government knew there was a problem. Scientists knew there was a problem. Honestly, anyone with a functioning nose knew there was a problem, but nobody could agree on how to fix it. Some argued they should build more cesspools. Others thought dumping everything into the Thames was fine. The river would carry it away, And then there were those who figured, well, London's always smelled bad. Why change it now? And then came the summer of 1858. Oh boy, the summer of 1858. It was hot, really hot, the kind of relentless heat London just wasn't used to, day after day of blazing sun and no rain. The Thames began to shrink, exposing thick, slimy layers of sewage along the riverbanks, and under that heat, everything began to ferment. The stench that rose from the river was beyond words. Imagine the worst smell you've ever experienced, then multiply it by 1,000 and breathe it every second of the day. People were literally vomiting as they walked by. Families fled their homes if they lived too close to the water. A quiet breath escapes as you feel a wave of gratitude for modern waste management. The newspapers called it the Great Stink, and it truly lived up to the name, great in the worst possible way. Charles Dickens wrote about it, calling the Thames a deadly sewer instead of a fine, fresh river. Scientists even conducted tests, dropping white paper into the water to see how filthy it was. The paper disappeared instantly, swallowed by the thick brown soup that passed for a river. But you know what finally pushed the government to act? The smell reached Parliament. The Houses of Parliament sit right on the banks of the Thames, and during that brutal summer, when members opened their windows for a little air, the stink just rolled right in. Politicians fled the chamber, handkerchiefs pressed to their faces, gagging and retching. They tried everything, soaking the curtains in lime and chloride to mask the smell, but it didn't help. At one point, they even discussed relocating Parliament entirely, abandoning their brand new, expensive building just to escape the stench. That's how bad it was. Finally, they decided to act. You relax deeper into the story, thinking about how it often takes a full-blown crisis to spark real change. And that's when they turned to a man named Joseph Bazalgette. Poor guy. Imagine being handed that assignment. Hey Joe, we need you to figure out what to do with 2.5 million people's worth of poop, and we need it done yesterday. But Bazalgette was brilliant, a visionary. He didn't want to patch the old system. He wanted to build something entirely new, a modern sewer network for all of London, over 1,000 miles of underground tunnels connecting to massive main sewers that would carry waste far downstream, about 8 miles away, to be dumped into the Thames at high tide. It was bold, it was expensive, and it was exactly what London needed. And just like that, Joseph Bazalgette's grand plan changed everything. Miles of brick-lined tunnels carried away the filth that had poisoned London for centuries. The Great Stink faded into history, and slowly the city began to breathe again. The river cleared, the air grew cleaner, and for the first time in a long time, people stopped getting sick from the very water they drank. It wasn't just a victory for engineering, it was a victory for humanity. Because what Bazalgette built beneath the streets became the foundation of modern sanitation, saving millions of lives long after his own time. In fact, parts of his sewer system are still in use today, a silent reminder that sometimes the dirtiest problems create the most extraordinary solutions. You take a slow breath, feeling the comforts of clean sheets, clean air, and the quiet hum of modern life. It's almost funny to think about it, how something as simple as running water or a flush toilet, things we barely notice, were once luxuries people couldn't even imagine. So tonight, when you wash your face, brush your teeth, or take that warm shower before bed, maybe take a second to appreciate it. Because once upon a time, staying clean meant battling a world that never stopped being dirty. And yet, they persevered. They built, they learned, and they changed everything. One bath, one brick, one flush at a time. Now, close your eyes. The world outside is clean, quiet, and safe. All thanks to those who refuse to live in the filth. Good night, and sleep well in the comfort of the modern world they helped create.